stop looking for hacks. And I mean hacks differently than like shortcuts. I mean, when you see something on like, oh, they're like, start doing these hashtags because that's what's working really well. Or start doing this new messenger thing that's only going to work for 60 days. The thing is that like, if you have to jump from these little mini trends to mini trends to mini trends, the moment that little mini arbitrage thing is done, you're done. You want to focus on what the overall objective of the platforms that you advertise on are. And so if I know that, for example, YouTube wants people to click and they want them to watch and ideally watch something else, then if I just always optimize all my effort to getting those big things right, whether something's trending or like, oh, yellow backgrounds are doing really well in the short term, or like you want to make sure that you respond to every single comment within 6 minutes. Otherwise, like it changes anytime someone tells me algorithm stuff, I basically ignore it. Because unless the goal of a platform has fundamentally changed, all of this other stuff is just distraction. Because again, what's the one thing that matters most? If I make something that's so good that everyone is going to share it, and the moment they watch, they can't wait to tell other people about it, the platform is gonna want to distribute that. I don't care what the algorithm is. It's going to want to distribute that. And even if it doesn't, so this is a real talk, even if it doesn't, the 100 people who saw it will get what I want out of it. And so the thing is that it's so much better to spend 100 hours making one exceptional thing than doing 100 things mediocrely. And now some of that's like, wait a second, how does that contradict with you got to do lots of quantity? Quantity matters because it teaches you how much work it takes to create quality. And so once you learn, and this is like, if you look at, I like YouTubers because they have really well documented like work cycles and you can see all their product and marketing in the same place, is that in the beginning, many of them make more videos. And then over time, they realize that if they make a better video, it has outsized returns. Meaning, if you make a video that's 20% better than your average video, you might get 5 times the views. And it might take only twice as much work to make your video 20% better. And so then all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, instead of making 2 videos, I'll make one that's 20% better and then I'll get 5 times the views. And then that becomes the new standard. Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well now we're making videos of this standard. But if I spend, twice the time as I did on that video, I get this video that was already 20% better, another 20% better. And then that gets 5 times the views of the 5 times the views. And so what happens is over time, you learn how much work it takes to make something great. And that is why quality starts to, over time, all these platforms will always optimize towards quality because there is no lack of information. Like people have Google, they can find out whatever they want. What they want is value per second, not seconds of value. And so our job, if we want to make anything, whether it's a product, whether it's marketing, whether it's an ad, whether it's a service that we give, that we sell, is that I get so tired of hearing the entrepreneur story. And I used to be one of these guys, which is why I get so frustrated. This is me yelling at my younger self. Is I'm like, I provide so much value. Like there's so much stuff that I give them, but the internet gives them literally everything for nothing. And so it's not that people want more, they want better. They want us to do the work ahead of time. People want a bargain. They want, how can I compress 13 years of business lessons into 2 hours? How do I do that? How do I get the lessons from 35,000 posts in 60 minutes? They want that. They don't want you to say, hey, you know what, dude, I put all 35,000 of my posts inside of this membership login. It's so much value. They're not going to get value from it because what would be so much more valuable is distilling all of that down to the most concrete form where every time they consume it, the value they get per second is so high they can't stop. That's where. And when you're thinking about this stuff, like quality is in the details that you only realize with lots of exposure. And I think about this like coats of paint. When I write a book, it's not like I sit down and I write it. I write the first draft and then I put another coat of paint on it. And then I put a third coat of paint on it and a fourth coat of paint on it. And I'll say this was a gift I got from the consulting and banking world, which is, let me tell you how they edit. Let me tell you how it works. First, you make a deck or a brief or whatever deliverable you're going to have to a customer or a client. That's round one. The second round, you look for just punctuation errors. The third round, you look for data errors. The fourth round, you look for misspellings and typos. The fifth round, now all of a sudden, every time you're reading it, you're also going to catch other stuff too, but you're specifically looking for one type of thing. And I'm not a video editor, but I would fucking bet that this is exactly how you edit video. You think, okay, let's look for lighting this time. Okay, let's look at transitions this time. Let's look at sound and music this time. Let's look at the actual content itself this time and make sure that there's no gaps or space. And so it's coats of paint and that exposure over time and looking at it when you start early in the morning. And the second time you look at it, it's after lunch. And the third time you look at it in your bad mood. And the fourth time you look at it, you just talk to your wife about this other thing. And that's top of mind. And so you look at it through these different frames and you get away. It's like sanding down the rough edges and you just keep getting at it and you just put different level grade sandpaper so it gets finer and smoother and smoother. But that only happens with exposure over time and lots of licks. And so you make the money in the edit, you make the money in the distillation, not in the creation. And so stop focusing on the hacks and put all your effort into the repeated bouts and bursts and going over with the sandpaper and the second coat and the third coat and the fourth coat of paint. That is how you can escape mediocrity. And that's what everyone who's mediocre is unwilling to do. They think that the moment they put the last period on their document that they finished writing a book, when really they just put 80,000 words into a document that no one's ever going to read. And you can teach quality to people by teaching the process that begets quality. So if you say the first thing we do is we have a wireframe and every wireframe has to have a hook, a story, lists or steps for an outcome, and then a conclusion that meets these standards, that's the wireframe. Have we done that? Checkbox 1. Checkbox 2, we record the whole thing, we fill in the gaps. Great. Checkbox 3, we look for transitions. Checkbox 4, we look for... And so then they can follow your step for creating quality. And most people just never document what they do, which is why every time they have to reinvent the wheel, and they have to reinvent the wheel for every new person who comes into their company, which is why it's so taxing when you're small to bring people on, because you feel you have no training, you have no systems. But if you can document these things for yourself, which A, by the way, will make you better, B, it also make it easier for you to bring new people in so you can ultimately replace yourself and keep the quality where you want it to be.